Hello and welcome to the Scatterable channel, and today we're going to be building a very good and very fast $1,200 gaming PC that should be pretty easy to build. So if you want to spend a little bit more on a PC that'll run your favorite PC games at 1440p, 240 FPS or above, no questions asked, all the while being able to stream to Twitch or YouTube, edit your favorite video content in a nice tidy package, then I think this PC should be a really good PC to build. So with all that said, I'm going to show you how to put together step by step the parts going inside of it, how to install Windows and drivers on it, its 1440p gaming performance, and then ultimately if you should build this $1,200 gaming PC, which looking at the parts right now, I think you're going to want to do. And fortunately, I've made it easier for you guys to actually want to build this through my PCbuilds.gg link in the description down below, where I have all the parts you'll need to assemble this PC at the lowest prices possible. And that isn't just for US, but also for Europe and even Australia. So do check out that if you want to learn more about this PC, but otherwise, let's go ahead and show you how to put it together. All right, so the items you'll need to build this PC are a pair of scissors, a Phillips head screwdriver, one like on this video, that is a requirement, gotta do that. In addition to having a USB flash drive for our Windows bootable media device when we finish building the PC and decide to install Windows on that for the first time, which I've got a full tutorial on how to do this in the description. We'll worry about it later. Otherwise, for the motherboard and processor, I'm going with the Ryzen 5 9600X, but note, you don't need this exact CPU to make this PC work. If you want to go with a Ryzen 7 CPU or even a cheaper Ryzen 5 7500F, you could use basically whatever you want, because for the motherboard, I've got this B850 Gaming X Wi-Fi from Gigabyte, which can support pretty much any CPU you want other than like the highest end 9950X3D when overclocked. And yes, you also don't need this exact motherboard. Heck, I may have something different linked in the PCbuilds.gg link in the description down below. It could be from a different brand, but really as long as it is ATX and B850, it's gonna work in this PC. So yeah, I should say the only reason why I went with this is because our graphics card is also Gigabyte. So I just wanna go with Gigabyte on Gigabyte. That's the only reason why I'm going with this. Otherwise, I could be using an ASRock, MSI, or ASUS board, but otherwise, go ahead and open this up. We've got our Wi-Fi antenna. You're gonna need that. Some other things, we won't need these, but go ahead and take out the motherboard. All right, we're gonna keep this off to the side somewhere. Oh, but look at this. With any motherboard you choose, no matter the brand, you're gonna get some sort of helpful little starter guide showing you where to plug in what on this motherboard in addition to the motherboard manual. So as you can see here, this shows you how to install a CPU socket in case you didn't want to watch this video, or even how to install the front I/O and properly plug in the CPU power cables. So that is all to say, in addition to scanning any QR codes you were given inside the motherboard box, if you're confused with where goes what on the motherboard, refer to the motherboard manual. Most motherboard manuals are provided now online, so you have to download them on your phone, but again, no different than the real thing. It just shows you where to plug in what on this motherboard and ultimately what to do with this. So if you have any other questions that aren't answered in this video, refer to the manuals. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and install our CPU onto the motherboard. All right, so to install your Ryzen processor, go ahead and take it out. Locate the triangle that is on the top left of the CPU. You'll also find it on the other side of the CPU. You're gonna wanna reference that triangle when you're putting it in the socket. That way you make sure it's in the right way, which also has its own triangle on the top left, just to make sure you got it right. So we're gonna go ahead and press this lever underneath, pull this open, expose the socket, gently drop in the CPU. Again, make sure you line it correctly with the triangles lining up in the correct spot. Give it a little jiggle, that's gonna go in. Gonna close this up, press down this lever, and wha-bam. Now, pretty much whatever CPU you go with, whether it's the Ryzen 5 7500F or the 9600X that I used, it's probably not gonna feature its own stock CPU cooler, meaning we'll need to get one, which given we're going with a Montech case for this build, I wanted to go with their budget NX400 CPU cooler, which apparently is really promising. Now, do you have to get this exact CPU cooler? No. I mean, you saw the PC case we're gonna be using this build. If you wanted to go with a water cooler or an even larger air cooler, you can pretty much go with whatever you want since we're going with an ATX PC case. But otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and start installing this CPU onto our 9600X. It's gonna be plenty, and I'm just going to briefly show you what I'm doing here, but if you want to learn exactly what I'm doing, then once again, always refer to the manuals that are provided and whenever you're dealing with. This will show you what to do, but what's important is that if you look at the actual manual, that you follow the AMD socket instructions since we're dealing with an AMD Ryzen CPU. So I'm gonna go ahead and install this and catch up with you guys later. So with our CPU and CPU cooler installed, let's go ahead and talk about the RAM and the SSD that I chose for this build, which for the RAM, I am going with 32 gigabytes of 6000 megahertz CAS latency 30 memory. Now guess what? You don't need this exact brand of RAM to make this PC build work. If you want to get something from G.Skill, Corsair, or wherever you want, you can do that. The reason why I'm going with these cool looking TeamGroup kits of RAM is that they'll match the theme of the build. So that's the only reason why. But again, once I have in that PCBuild.gg link in the description down below, we'll have the right speed and CAS latency that you need for optimal performance for this PC build. Speaking of, for the storage, I am going with this 1 terabyte M.2 SSD from TeamGroup as well. This is their G70 Pro. Again, the only reason why I'm going with this SSD over others is that it is the most cost-efficient 1 terabyte M.2 PCIe Gen 4.0 SSD that comes with a built-in DRAM controller, which at this price point, you definitely want for a PC build. That's gonna provide insurance for your read and write speeds of this SSD over the time. And installing these onto the motherboard is going to be really easy, so let's go ahead and take care of that now. So first things first, notice with your RAM sticks that the two inserts here are different sizes, meaning this is only going to go in one way onto your motherboard, so you really can't mess this up. Now, as far as what slots to put these in, you're going to want to insert these RAM sticks into slots A2 and B2, which will already be marked on your motherboard. And they're going to be these two slots that are farthest away from the CPU, separated by one slot in between. So once you open those tabs up, I'm going to go ahead and place in this first RAM stick, see if it's going to go in. All right, that looks like it's gonna go in. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a firm press. That's in. Let's get this next stick, line it up, firm press. There you go. Then for this motherboard specifically, we got an interesting M.2 heatsink layout. So you can see a few of these have these plastic covers, but we're only gonna need this for one M.2 SSD. So it looks like I'm gonna go ahead and remove this one. There we go. And here's where we're gonna put in our M.2 SSD, which as you can see, we got this little notch here on the M.2 SSD, meaning this is only gonna go in one way. You're not gonna mess this up. There you go, give that a little click. And then for actually hooking this underneath, press that down, press that over. Now it's locked in. And then same thing with these. You should be able to hook in and yep, that is in there. Then for the case, I'm going with this Montech XR wood. Now to answer the big question, do you need this exact PC case to make this PC build work? No, any PC case with ATX in the title of it will work with this overall PC build guide. Just the reason why I'm going with this Montech case is because it's inexpensive, but I do like the little wood accents that are on the front of the PC case. So it gives this PC case somewhat of a premium feel. On top of its really good interior layout that's gonna be beginner friendly. Anyways, we've got this front dust filter that was not included on the front panel, so we'll have to put that on later. But if we flip this PC case around and we take off this rear panel, there are all the cables that come pre-included with the PC case on top of this baggie right here, which contains all the screws and anything else you might need to put whatever you want inside this PC case. So if you're wondering, do I need to buy any screws for this PC? Nope, they should all come here. And what's cool about these is that these baggies are already pre-labeled, which is really beginner friendly. So we've already got our power supply screws here, as well as our motherboard screws, which we're gonna deal with now. All right, so before we put the motherboard into the PC case, once again, I've got the case manual here. I found it inside the PC case. And I just want to point out that yes, you can use the motherboard screws that were provided by the PC case for the motherboard. And once again, they're also marked here on this plastic baggie that came with the PC case. Now, before we put the motherboard into the PC case, we gotta go ahead and check how many standoffs we have. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 standoffs. And if we pull out the motherboard here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 holes. So we've got 9 standoffs covering off 9 holes. So we should be good to go ahead and drop this Ooh, we should be good to go ahead and drop this into the PC case. Pretty sure the motherboard's gonna be fine. Looks like there's this cable here from this fan we might need to push out of the way. And then we're gonna wanna butt this motherboard up to the IO shield right here. And if we look, we wanna go ahead and line up these standoffs. There we go. So the threads are visible from the holes. So now go ahead and take that plastic baggie that I showed you earlier and take out these screws. These are the motherboard screws. Then take your Phillips head screwdriver and one by one, start screwing these into the motherboard, into the standoffs. However, don't tighten them. What you're gonna wanna do is put all the screws into the motherboard standoffs about 3/4 of the way in. Then once you've got them all in, then we'll go ahead and tighten them all up individually, one by one, in a crisscross formation. Like what I'm gonna show you now with this first screw. This is the last one, so I'm gonna go ahead and fully tighten that one up, go to a quarter, tighten this one up, go to another corner, repeat this in a crisscross formation across the rest of the screws on the motherboard. And with that done, let's go ahead and install the power supply. So for the power supply, I'm going with this 850 watt 80+ gold Montech Century power supply, once again from Montech. And again, you don't need this exact power supply to make this PC work. There could be a different one linked in the PCbuilds.gg link. That all just depends on whatever is cheapest at the moment. But I think you can shoot for an 80+ gold unit because they've been slowly coming down in price. And this Montech Century unit, I think, is the cheapest of the lot, but doesn't sacrifice on quality. This is actually, I think, really good for, I think, 80 or 90 US dollars. Otherwise, once you open this up, here's a plastic baggie that most importantly contains the power cable you're gonna plug in to the back of the power supply to a wall outlet. So have this on hand for later. And then in this wrapped bag right here should be all the cables you'll need to put whatever you want into this power supply, because like with most other, you don't want to drop this. But with most other units in this price range, they are all fully modular. So we're gonna plug in what cables we need that are just essential to this PC build. So real quick, let's go ahead and plug in the cables we'll need for the power supply before we put this into the PC case. So the first cable we're gonna use is this thick, chunky cable right here. This is our motherboard power cable. It's gonna plug in where it says MB on the power supply. And what's important is that you make sure you insert these connectors all the way in to the power supply. And then next, what we'll need are our CPU power cables, which with this motherboard, we have an 8-pin and a 4-pin connector. So we're gonna go ahead and plug one of these into where it says CPU with the end that says power supply. So we're gonna plug this in here on the top left, make sure that all goes in all the way. And then for that separate 4-pin connector, I'm gonna go ahead and grab a second CPU power cable. As you can see with this one, we can separate the two ends. So we just have a singular 4-pin, so we're all covered there. I'm gonna plug this and right next to the other CPU power cable. And finally, because I already know what brand of graphics card we're gonna choose in this PC build, I'm actually gonna go ahead and plug in our 12-volt power cable. However, if you're working with an AMD, Intel, or lower end NVIDIA graphics card, you still have these regular PCIe cables you can connect into the back of the PSU right here. But for this, we're gonna plug one of these into where it says 12-volt power cable. And it's important to make sure this gets inserted all the way and that there's a firm click like that. Now to install the power supply, don't forget your power supply screws that came with your PC case, or you can use with what came inside the power supply box. I'm gonna open these up. Then I'm gonna take this unit and with the fan side facing down, I'm gonna bring this in. I'm gonna butt this up and I'm gonna go ahead and start screwing in the power supply of the PC case with that final screw, and I'm gonna leave the switch here on the 0 for now. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and deal with all these cables that are in the back of this PC case. So let me explain where goes where. All right, so there's two groups of cables here. These cables here are your power supply cables. We'll leave these for later, but here we've got all of our front IO and fan and RGB cables, since we do have some pre-installed fans in this Montech PC case that are already pre-wired, but it may kind of look like they're jumbled in with the rest of the cables. So let's go ahead and separate these out. There we go. So we've got all of our front IO cables pulled over and now just all of the fan cables on their own, which if we look and we find the ends of these connectors, looks like we've got these two ends right here. One of these is a 5-volt ARGB connector. So this 3-pin connector here, this is gonna control the RGB for the fans in this PC case. And then we've got this system fan header that we're gonna plug into any of the system fan slots on our motherboard to control the case fans, which I'd say let's go ahead and take care of these now. So I've got those two connectors down here on the bottom left of the motherboard, and like I said, you can plug this system fan header into whichever 4-pin you want here on the motherboard. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug it into this one like that, and then we have our ARGB connector right there. It's gonna go into where it says ARGB, so the 3-pin, not the 4-pin. You'll know because it won't fit, but let's go ahead and line this up. And we got that in first try. That's all of our RGB and fans taken care of. Now let's go ahead and start plugging in all those front IO cables that are like our power button, our reset button, our audio jack, starting with this HD audio connector that says HD audio on it. This is always universally gonna go on the bottom left of any motherboard you choose. And this will only go in one way. And if you're wondering where I'm finding the connectors for each of these front IO connectors, I'm finding them in the motherboard manual. There's this cool little map that shows you where to plug in what spots on the motherboard. Just go ahead and follow that. Now we've got our front panel connector. So this controls our power button, reset button, among other things. And this is always gonna go on the bottom right of any motherboard you choose, specifically the ones that have the front panel headers. And if you're confused as to which set of pins support the power button and such, once again, refer to the motherboard manual. It'll show you the pin layout. This one's gonna go here on the left, just like that. And now this blue chunky guy right here is our USB 3.0 header. It's gonna go right here. So you can see there's a notch on the connector, meaning this is gonna line up one way with this connection. This is gonna more or less, I think, squish into here. All right, I'm gonna pull that through, click that, there we go. And then finally, we've got our USB Type-C header. That's gonna go right here. There's only gonna be one type of this connector on the motherboard, so you're not gonna miss it. This is also only gonna go in one way, so it doesn't work the first time. Try again, easy peasy. Now let's go ahead and deal with our power cables, starting with our CPU power cable. This one has the split ends, because if we look at the actual connector, it is this 8-pin by 4 pins. We're gonna go ahead and plug in this split end first. Once again, you can see there's this little latch here on the connector that's gonna line up with the notch on the connector, meaning this is only gonna go in one way. There, as you can see, I got one of them in there. Now I'll go ahead and get this remaining one. This is the important one. You definitely don't wanna miss this. Okay, there we go. And what's important is to make sure you press these in all the way. If they're not in all the way, then there could be power issues when you use this PC. Next, we've got our motherboard power cable, which has this latch right here. That's gonna line up with this notch on the connector. Might need to flip this around. Yep, we'll go ahead and do that. Bring this around, press it in, give it a firm press. Well, bam. And finally, for our GPU power cable, whether it's the 12-volt power cable or a PCIe power cable, with this Montech case, we got this handy little port right here. We're gonna thread our GPU power cable through, which will then lead us to installing the graphics card, which can be whatever you want. If you want it to be an NVIDIA graphics card, an AMD or Intel, doesn't matter. You've got an 850-watt power supply in this PC build, which can support pretty much anything on the market that isn't an RTX 5090. But for the budget constraints of this PC build, I recommend 2 GPUs. The first one is the Radeon RX 9070 for about $600 USD. That is going to be your best option on paper. It's got 16 gigabytes of VRAM, surprisingly good ray tracing performance, and access to AMD's latest frame generation technologies, including FSR4 and some decent video streaming and video editing capabilities. But if you wanted to save yourself $50 and go with Team Green, I'm actually gonna go ahead and choose the RTX 5070 for this PC build because I've got this Gigabyte card, Gigabyte motherboard, so I wanna see how this all looks visually. But otherwise, like I said, you can go with whatever graphics card you want. And once again, I've got both of these GPU options linked in PCbuilds.gg. You can choose whichever one you want. But I'm curious to see how well this 5070 will perform at 1440p, especially knowing this has 12 gigabytes of VRAM, which is its main pitfall. But I think Gigabyte definitely did justice with this gaming OC edition because for a base model card, this looks pretty good. And Gigabyte were also kind enough to include some handy GPU sag bracket stuff that came with this graphics card that I think we'll end up using in this PC case. So I'll put these off to the side. Anyways, to insert this graphics card into the PC case should be pretty straightforward. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna take our screwdriver, we're gonna go ahead and unscrew this PCI protector slot. There we go. Now we have access to the PCI slots, and we're gonna go ahead and find the slots that are gonna be occupied by the graphics card. So this is a 2 slot. And if we look here on the motherboard, our topmost slot is right there. So we're just gonna take out these top 2 PCI covers in the PC case. All right, and with those 2 out of the way, let's take our graphics card, remove the protective PCI Express slot cover, bring this around. We're gonna fit it into that topmost PCI Express slot. All right, I think it's gonna go in. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a firm press and you should be able to hear a click. Or I guess you could say lack thereof because I didn't hear much. Yeah, let me read. Yep, that's in there. Okay. Now let's go ahead and put back in those 2 case screws that we just took out. One thing I like to do is I like to lift the graphics card just a little bit while I'm screwing these in, just so it doesn't sag further. Okay, we got that in. I'm gonna go ahead and screw back in the PCI cover protector. And with that, the last thing we gotta do is go ahead and plug in the other end of our GPU power cable, whether it's a PCI Express or 12-volt power cable like what I have here. This is only gonna go in one way into your graphics card, and in the case of this connector, make sure it's firmly inserted all the way. And you hear that click, and that latch is down. And now with this all assembled, let's go ahead, clean this up, turn it on, and install Windows. All right, let's go ahead and turn on this PC. So first things first, you remember your power cable that you had from the power supply box. Go ahead and plug one end into a wall outlet and then the other end into your power supply, like what I'm doing here, and then flick the switch from the 0 to the 1. That way, when we press the power button, the PC is actually gonna turn on. Now next, and this is what a lot of people mess up on, let's go ahead and get our display cable from the graphics card to the monitor. So look at this. See the cable here? I'm gonna plug it into where the graphics card is, AKA the thing that computes the graphics for our PC. So look, the cable's coming from here where the graphics card is, not up here. If your motherboard doesn't have any graphics, I know there's connectors there, but don't use them. They are pretty much useless. We're gonna use this down here where the graphics card is. Then we're gonna put the other one here into the monitor. And then here is our monitor power cable. Don't forget to plug that in. And then while you're here, don't forget to plug in your keyboard and mouse into the back of the PC. And finally, if you haven't done this step already, go ahead and get that 8GB or bigger USB spare flash drive that you have on hand to make a bootable Windows media device, which I have a full tutorial linked in the description down below telling you how to make one of these for free. And just note, whatever USB flash drive you use will be completely wiped, so make sure it's one you're willing to use just for Windows. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug this into any of the USB 3.0 ports here on the back of the motherboard. And now with that in, I'm gonna go ahead and press the power button. We're just gonna sit here and wait. Okay, it looks like something popped up on our screen saying that looks like we gotta reset something. Just whatever pops up on screen, just make sure you proceed. You may need to reset, press Y, just proceed ahead. And once you see this spinning circle, you're basically in. Now let's go ahead and install Windows on the PC. All right, so once you reach here, go ahead and hit next. Install Windows 11, check. Here's where you can go ahead and enter in your product key if you have one. I don't, that's totally fine. You can do this later. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip it. Here's where you can go ahead and choose your version. You can do Pro or Home, doesn't matter. I'm gonna do Pro because why not? Accept. Now there is our SSD where we're gonna go ahead and install Windows on, but before we do that, we gotta click Create a partition. And now we've got our primary drive already selected, hit next, install, and you're basically done. Okay, go ahead and choose your country. Now here is where you've got a few options. You can do this the regular way. You can go ahead and connect to the internet, proceed with installation, sign into your Microsoft account, and do this the long way. You're welcome to do that. However, you need to have access to the internet. So that can either be done with an Ethernet cable straight from your PC to your router. That's actually the fastest way to have your internet. Or if you have a spare USB Wi-Fi adapter, you can plug this into the back of your PC and be all good to go. But let's say you had neither of those things and you didn't have any internet and you couldn't proceed. Well, you can actually bypass this and install Wi-Fi drivers later by pressing Shift F10 on your keyboard, then typing in start space ms-cxh : local only, enter. And here you can just set up a local account for your PC. Although if you wanted to eventually run like Halo Infinite or Forza Motorsport or Forza Horizon. There you'll need to sign into a Microsoft account, and I've run into issues where I did this and then I couldn't run any of those Microsoft games. So at some point you will need to eventually connect to a Microsoft account. But if you're just doing Epic Games or Steam, then yeah, you can do what I just did right here. Which, by the way, for all these privacy settings, I just tick them off because I want a bare bones Windows experience, which we've got going on right here. All right, so once you reach the Windows desktop, we need to go ahead and connect to the internet. So although I've got internet connection right now, let me show you how you would download it onto a separate USB, plug it into this PC on a separate computer, and do it pretty easily. So all you gotta do is type in the name of your motherboard, which for us is gonna be this one. And no matter the brand, if it's ASRock, Asus, or MSI, you're gonna wanna click on support. And then under support, you should see some sort of downloads. And then under here, you should see WLAN or anything that says wireless, Wi-Fi. There it says Realtek 88252 Wi-Fi driver. We need to download this. And then I know this is small and hard to read, but there is our Wi-Fi driver. We're gonna put it onto this USB drive, plug it into this PC, and then when we do, we'll go ahead and extract this. Then we'll click on this and essentially just install our Wi-Fi driver right then and there onto the PC. And once that is done, you should see a little pop up to the right of your screen, whether you have an Asus, ASRock, Gigabyte, or MSI board. This is a handy little reminder that's basically gonna let you install all of the various utilities for your motherboard all in one go, which for me unfortunately failed, but that's okay because we can literally download the same thing here on the motherboard page. We can click here under utility. There's the Gigabyte Control Center, full installation. That's basically what we saw, but somehow failed. So we'll let this download and this will take care of all the other various utilities for our motherboard. But if we didn't want to wait for that, heads up, they're all right here. So there's our audio driver, there's our chipset driver, our latest one. There's our, again, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth driver, and anything else you might need on top of the latest BIOS update. Okay, so here I am actually running that Gigabyte Control Center thing that didn't successfully run. Again, this will just let us go ahead and download all the various utilities and drivers for our motherboard. And again, you should see something similar to this, whether you have an ASRock, Asus, or MSI motherboard. All right, let's go ahead and run that Gigabyte Control Center now. And then right here, there should be this little update page where we can download all the various things we want for our motherboard, which for me, we don't need Norton, we don't need this Compass library, but we do need the chipset driver, the LAN driver, I guess. This is for the onboard graphics for our 9600X, although we won't be using that. HD audio drivers, we don't need backup, and we don't need Ryzen Master. And we can also go ahead and download the latest BIOS as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and install all of these, let them do its thing. As you can see, it'll take a while. I guess it decided to do all this stuff, but anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and let this run, let the PC restart, and then we'll install graphics card drivers. So all you gotta do left now with all of your motherboard utilities and chipset drivers installed is to go ahead and install your graphics card drivers, which is super simple. If you have an AMD graphics card, just type in AMD drivers into your search engine, click on the topmost link, click that Windows 10, 11 automatically detect driver that takes care of all of the heavy work. But if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, just type in NVIDIA drivers, click on the topmost link. Once again, we're gonna bypass this and just do the automatic driver updates. We'll click on Gamers and Creators, download the NVIDIA app, run that, should be all good to go. And then we're gonna do one final thing in the BIOS, and that is enable XMP. And to access the BIOS, we're just gonna go ahead and press the delete key on our keyboard as soon as the brand of the motherboard pops up. Okay, we are in, and no matter if you have an MSI, Asus, Gigabyte, or ASRock motherboard, well, I guess you have an ASRock motherboard, you may not see as simple of a UI as this. You may have to click on easy mode somewhere on screen, but it should bring you to something simple like this, and all you gotta do is just see where it says EXPO, and make sure EXPO is enabled. It can be 1 or 2, it doesn't matter. And once you do that, save, exit, and then that's it. You're ready to get to gaming. So, can this PC run Fortnite? Absolutely. I'm not even going to bother testing it because here's a game that deserves to be ran on this PC, Battlefield 6, and this is the open beta. Something a little goofy is happening with the FPS counter, but we're getting in the 300s right now at 1440p. That's flippin' wild. Like, that's ridiculously optimized. And let's see if I can show you guys the graphics settings real quick. Go to options, graphics.
we're at balanced. I mean, you got performance. Let's just keep it to balance. And for graphics preset, let's do ultra. Why not? Because we're still gonna get freaking 300 FPS. This is ridiculously optimized. You could do 4K. Thank you for that. However, I'm only here to show the game. Goodness, this game runs so good. I love to see a AAA developer take their game optimization seriously. Thank goodness. Maybe the one good move EA has done in a very long time. And I think we should move on to another game. Okay, now I want to dial things down a notch, go to Counter-Strike 2, a game that is not graphically demanding to run whatsoever. In fact, oh, we're restarting. Wait, what the heck are we doing? Okay, M41S, all right. Anyways, this game, like I said, super easy to run, but the point is, I want to show that 9600X is not holding back this PC whatsoever. Whether you throw in the 5070 or the 9070, we're getting 360 FPS at 1440p. Do we see any problems right now? This one is especially prevalent for all my Fortniters, my Marvel Rivals people, my Apex Legends, my whoever the heck. This is just to let you know that the 9600X is clearly not bottlenecking the graphics card in any way. You are gonna get so much FPS that you're gonna max out even like a 1440p, 360 hertz monitor. If you were really that picky about it, there is nothing to worry about. If you want to play esports games, you're gonna get way too much frame rate on this PC. You could even spend less. You could spend less money. Anyways, we're gonna finish out with one more game. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I don't want to run Cyberpunk again for the like 16th time in a PC build video. Oblivion Remastered ain't gonna, oh, hello. Oblivion Remastered, sure, I could show you that again, but hey, this is the Half-Life 2 RTX demo, which I believe utilizes path tracing, I believe. I know this game is actually genuinely difficult to run because we're actually getting about 140 FPS, which you may think, oh yeah, well that's because it's super easy. Well, sure, but we have all of this advanced ray tracing tech happening in the background. Oh, that's a great miss. There we go. And I think I've actually seen other NVIDIA GPUs struggle in this game. Oh, right, yeah. Let's do this. See, look at the ray tracing, dude. One more time. Oh, the paint can, Ah! I love me a good paint can, man. Oh, man, I remember playing this game on the orange box back on my 360, and it's still my favorite game of all time. I will always be down any day of the week to play Half-Life 2. Anyways, this is just to show that, yeah, this PC can do ray tracing. I'm keeping it at 1440p though. What's cool is like, if you look at the game settings, there's nothing. It's just field of view. It's like if you can either run this game or if you can't run this game. That's the only two graphical options you are given. Anyways, there's Father Grigori. It's pretty late. This PC is plenty fast. It's plenty fast. I don't think there's any more. We gotta wait till GTA 6 if we really want to stress this PC. I'm letting you know right now. That's the only game that's really gonna stress out this PC. Let's finish out the video. Okay, I don't want to hear in the comments section, this PC is gonna run any game you throw at it. Like, really, did you not see that frame rate? In Battlefield 6, holy bejesus. At 1440p, you will have no problems running any games on this PC whatsoever. So I don't want to see in the comments, I don't want to see, can this PC run X game? The answer is automatically yes. And as a matter of fact, the only game I don't know for sure if this PC can run is probably Grand Theft Auto 6 when it probably eventually comes out on PC maybe in 2027. That's the only game I don't know. You need something faster than this to run that. That's literally it. This runs Battlefield 6. This can run any ray tracing game you want. Heck, if you went with the faster RX 9070 in this PC with 4 extra gigabytes of VRAM, you would be even better off than the 5070 I used in this build. You know what, that's the end of the build video. This 1440p perfect machine. And by the way, I did make a $1,500 gaming PC build that has very similar to components to this, but with a faster graphics card. I tested the exact same games and I straight up went to 4K in all those games. there was no point in running them at 1440p because they were already getting stupidly high frame rate. So that's to say, if you want to spend any more than this, get a 4K monitor because this thing's going to have zero issues running anything at 1440p. And I'm ending the video right there. If you want to build this PC, I've got it fully linked in the description down below in that PCbuilds.gg link. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching. And this is the Skydival channel, signing out.